Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. Sharda mentioned that she'd put a link in the chat. What it is it's a remarkable performance of a hymn to Holy Mother written by Eric Clapton and sung as a duet between Eric Clapton and Luciano Pavarotti, the great Italian tenor, with backup from the London Gospel Choir. It's really worth your listening to. Now, when he addresses Holy Mother, we're not certain whether he's addressing Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi or Holy Mother Mary. But it doesn't matter. Like the incarnations of Vishnu are all Vishnu, the incarnations of Mother are all Mother. So that's our story, and we're sticking to it. So if you choose to copy or download that link and listen to that song, I can almost guarantee that you will be very glad you did. It's a beautiful, beautiful rendition of Holy Mother by Eric Clapton and Luciano Pavarotti. Eric Clapton, as some of you may know, is a truly phenomenal guitarist. I mean, world class in every sense. And this lovely hymn to Mother speaks of his spiritual journey. So anyway, that's what's in the chat link. So before we start, are there any comments or questions about Holy Mother, about what we've been studying? We're well along in the book now. And of course, this chapter is Holy Mother as Guru. And the subhead that we'll start with this evening is Holy Mother Answers Questions. So before we start, are there any comments from your own wisdom, your own experience, or any questions that you'd like to ask? All right. Holy Mother Answers Questions. This is Swami Chitanananda writing. As we make progress in spiritual life, we encounter various problems and become confused. At that time, we need a guru to answer our questions. We are indebted to the Mother's disciples who asked questions on our behalf and left those answers for us. Answers that are simple, direct, practical, convincing, and inspiring. And when the Swami, this is again the Swami underlining, that what the Mother did, though she left the world physically in 1920, She has no way left our presence. And so her comments, her answers to questions, and so on, are just as relevant to us now as they were when they were answered during her lifetime. And we can take refuge in her. So her answers are simple, direct, practical, convincing, and inspiring. Swami Shantananda asked these vital questions to Holy Mother. Swami Shantananda, what should be our mode of life? What should be our mode of life? Holy Mother, spend your life in the same ways as you are doing now. Pray to the Master earnestly. Think of him always. In other words, you don't have to make a radical change of life, go to the caves, go to the forest, whatever it is. Spend your life in the same ways you are doing now. Pray to the Master earnestly. Think of him always. And what will happen, as Krishna says in the Gita, holiness itself will transform you. That's my addition. Shantananda. Mother, I am overtaken by fear when I see how even highly spiritual persons meet with a fall. Mother, I am overtaken by fear when I see how even highly spiritual persons meet with a fall. Mother, if you are constantly in touch with objects of enjoyment, you're likely to succumb to their influence. My son, don't look at a woman, even if it be only a figure made of wood. Avoid the company of women. Now, this is meant for monastics. This is meant for monastics. It's not meant for householders. The master said, monk, beware. A monk should always be alert. A monk's path is very slippery. One should tiptoe on the slippery path. Is it a small thing to become a monk? A monk must not even glance at a woman. While walking, he should keep his eyes fixed on his toes. The ochre cloth of a monk protects him, as does the collar on a dog. No one hurts such a dog. In other words, the collar identifies the dog as belonging to someone. No one hurts such a dog, for they know he has a master, for they know it has a master. Shantananda. Mother, is it good to practice asanas and pranayamas, yogic postures and breathing exercises? Mother, these practices lead to supernatural powers, which deflect a person from the spiritual path. So that's about as simple and direct an answer as you're going to get. Shantananda. Mother, is it good to practice asanas and pranayamas, yogic postures and breathing exercises? Mother, these practices lead to supernatural powers, which deflect a person from the spiritual path. Shantananda. Is it good to be going about from one place of pilgrimage to another? Mother. If the mind feels at rest in a particular place, there is no need for pilgrimage. And I believe it's Kabir, has this wonderful poem in which he says, I felt the need of a pilgrimage, so I sat still for 3 days, and God came to me. If the mind feels at rest in a particular place, there is no need for pilgrimage. Shantananda. I find it impossible to meditate. Please awaken my Kundalini. Mother. It will awaken in the course of time. Do japa and meditation. It does not rise of itself. Continuous meditation will make the mind so steady that you will not feel inclined to give it up. When the mind is not in a mood to meditate, do not force it to do so. Now there's an instruction for us all. Practice japa, but don't force the meditation. In such conditions, get up from the seat of meditation after making prostrations. Real meditation is of a spontaneous nature. Now that's bound to lead to some thoughts or questions in some of your minds. Is there anything at all that you'd like to ask or comment, having heard what the mother said?
That statement is true, Brother Shankara. Continuous meditation will make the mind so steady that you will not feel inclined to give it up. That is very true. Once we get used to it, it just automatically, like going for the breakfast, going for dinner, you are drawn to it. I experienced that. It's a personal experience.
Very good. And what she says, thank you, Jaime. She says, and this is very potent, real meditation is of a spontaneous nature, which is exactly what Patanjali says. The first 6 limbs of yoga are something you do through Purushakara, self-effort. The last 2, meditation and samadhi, are something that happens to you, which is mother's words for it is real meditation is of a spontaneous nature. Shantananda. Mother, why is it that the mind does not become steady? When I try to think of God, I find that the mind is drawn toward other objects. Mother, it is wrong if the mind, if it is wrong if the mind is drawn toward worldly objects. By worldly objects is meant money, family, and so on. But it is natural. It is natural for it to think of the work in which one is engaged. If meditation is not possible, do japa, japa siddhi. Realization comes through japa. That's what I was saying earlier. If it's not possible to practice meditation, if you find yourself you really don't feel drawn to it, you don't want to. If meditation is not possible, do japa, japa siddhi. Realization comes through japa. If a meditative mood comes, well and good, but by no means do it by force. And that's something for us to really keep in mind.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
what is doing japa without meditation mean? Like we are, I guess, trying to concentrate on the japa. Like when we're doing japa, either the words or the sound or the image or some characteristic of the ishta. So, what's the difference between doing that? Is it just the degree to which we?
If you're just doing japa, Om Ram Jai Ram, Om Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram, Om Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram, with a little more attention than that, Om Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram. If you're just repeating that, then that's it's simply causing that vibration to course through the mind and the rest of the body. And it has its beneficial effect. If instead you're concentrating, as you said, on something beyond that, something, some aspect, if you were saying Om Ram, you're saying that, but the mind is also focused on the meaning of Om and the meaning of Rama or Ram. Then that's practicing meditation. This is called samyama. And so it's practicing japa. It's one form of samyama, practicing japa and practicing a form of meditation, concentrating on some aspect of what you're saying. But you can simply just say the mantra. You don't have to do the other if your mind is disinclined to do so. And the mother is saying, don't force it to do it. It's actually not. It's excessive. And Sri Krishna, in the Yoga of Meditation, the chapter on the Yoga of Meditation, specifically says, don't be excessive. Is that clear?
Yes, Brother Shankara, because lately, it has been difficult for me to do any degree of concentration meditation because of, responsibilities of
Yes,
taking
but one
care.
can always
So,
do japa. One can
okay.
always do the japa.
Yeah, so that's what I was not clear on. So basically, just repeat the sound without
Yeah, japa
worrying
siddhi.
about.
Japa siddhi.
Okay, thank you.
That's what Mother says. Let's repeat that. If meditation is not possible, and you just said for reasons of your own, it's not possible, do japa. Japa siddhi. Is that right? Jagat siddhi? Is it siddhi? Is that what that says? Jagat. Realization comes through japa. If a meditative mood comes, well and good, but by no means do it by force. Any other comments or questions? All right. Shantananda. By the way, I was saying earlier that I'm hoping on Friday to have a visit to the optometrist and improve these glasses. So we'll see if sometime in the next couple of weeks I don't have a little better reading ability. Shantananda. Is it better to do spiritual practices staying at the monastery in Varanasi than in a solitary place? Mother, if you undergo spiritual practices for some time in a solitary place, like Rishikesh, you will find that your mind has become strong, and then you can live in any place or society without being affected by it in the least. So, she answers his question indirectly. Is it better to do spiritual practices staying at the monastery in Varanasi than in a solitary place? Mother, if you undergo spiritual practices for some time in a solitary place like Rishikesh, you will find that your mind has become strong. And then you can live in any place or society without it being affected in the least. So this is a parallel to Sri Ramakrishna's. First find God. First make the acquaintance of God. Then, having found that pillar, you can hold to it with one hand and dance around the pillar doing whatever you wish with the other hand. Shantananda, I've been practicing asanas for some days to keep my health in good condition. These postures help one in digesting food and in practicing continence. Mother, be a little careful about it. If you continue such exercises for a long time, the mind may be diverted to the body. Again, if you give them up, it may affect your health. Therefore, you should exercise discretion. Now, it's very interesting about this mind being diverted to the body. If you practice Hatha Yoga and you become successful at it, if you practice it enough that you become successful, there definitely is a tendency of the mind to think about the body, its needs, its concerns, and so on, perhaps more than is needful. And it's very interesting in this regard that Swami Vivekananda was asked about something that was relatively new in his time, which was Christian Science, the spiritual lineage of Christian Science founded by Mary Baker Eddy. And it's a very powerful spiritual practice. And Vivekananda was asked about it. And he said, well, Mrs. Eddy almost got it right. And when asked to explain what he meant by that, he said that there was too much emphasis on the body and its health. Too much emphasis on the body and its health. You had to do, there was a danger of being too, of doing your spiritual practices so that you maintained perfect health. And that's what Mother is driving at here. So she says you must exercise discretion. Any comment or question about that? All right. Shantananda, Mother, I only practice them for 5 or 10 minutes for good digestion. Mother, that's all right. I warned you because if you practice any exercise and then give it up, it may ultimately impair your health. I bless you, my child, that you may have God consciousness. So Mother immediately guides the conversation away from this business about digestion and health and says, you just have to be careful about these things. If you're doing them, don't give them up because that could impair your health. But I bless you, my child, that you may have God consciousness, which is what, this body is going to come and go. God consciousness, once attained, will not go. It will go right through the transition, which we call death, into what comes next for you, and may result in your not having to take human birth again. If you have God consciousness, probably will result in your not having to take human birth again. Shantananda, I am practicing pranayama. Shall I continue it? Mother, yes, you may do a little, but don't go to excess and heat your brain and nervous system. If the mind becomes quiet of itself, then what is the need of pranayama? And this is what the Ramakrishna order sadhus teach. If you have if you have instructions from your guru, if you've taken diksha, if you've taken initiation, all you need to do is follow those directions. And you don't need to practice any pranayama to calm the mind. She says, yeah, okay, do a little. And I've known the swamis, particularly they do the nostrils business. The breathing in and out, closing one nostril and opening the other, and so on. But they don't do it much. They only do it for a few moments before they begin to practice japa, concentration and meditation. Shantananda, nothing is gained, mother, without the awakening of the Kundalini. Nothing is gained, mother, without the awakening of the Kundalini. Mother, quite so, my child. The Kundalini will gradually be awakened. You will realize everything by the repetition of God's name, making japa. So he says, nothing is achieved until the Kundalini is awakened and arises. And she responds, quite so, my child. The Kundalini will gradually be awakened. You will realize everything by the repetition of God's name. Before the awakening of the Kundalini, one hears the anahata sound, Om. But nothing can be achieved without the grace of the Divine Mother. So this is again pointed out very clearly in chapter 3 of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. You can attain the ability to hear the anahata sound. You can do all of these things and yet be far, far, far from realization. Why? Because you're focused on those things. Hearing the anahata sound is incidental. Sure, it's a guidepost that some progress has been made. But as Swami Swahananda used to tell us over and over, these external things, these experiences, they're good, they're wonderful. But unless they result in change in behavior, then it is not realization. It is simply an experience, however exalted it may be. So, Mother reminds him nothing can be achieved without the grace of the Divine Mother. Now, does that need to be parsed any further for anyone? Does anyone have something to contribute from their own experience or wisdom? Or is there anything that you'd like to ask? Okay. Now, the grace of the Divine Mother is not something that will be withheld if you sincerely want God knowledge and God realization. Mother's love is absolutely, as she pointed out many times in earlier chapters, Mother's love is for each and every one of us unconditionally. So this grace of the Divine Mother is, as the Master pointed out, ever present. But you have to raise your sail. If you remain anchored by your fascination with anything within time, space, and causation, be it the supernatural powers of yoga, whether it be worldly objects, whatever it is, as long as your fascination remains with those things, then you are anchored in place. You won't even think to really raise your sail because you haven't yet pulled up your anchor. So, as the master said, the breeze of grace is always blowing. You have only to raise your sail. But how much good will it do even if you think to raise your sail and you haven't pulled up the anchor? The anchor being your fascination with and your continued entanglement with things of time, space, and causation. Shantananda. Mother, the stone image does not satisfy my longing. What does that say? This is not. Shantananda, the stone image does not satisfy us any longer. Mother, why do you say so, my child? How many hopeless sinners come to Varanasi and attain liberation by touching the image of Lord Shiva? How many hopeless sinners come to Varanasi and attain liberation by touching the image of Lord Shiva? And he, the great God, carries on his shoulder the iniquities of all without any murmur. So Shantananda is saying, he's hooked on this idea that the Kundalini must awaken and there's nothing left for him in the stone image. And the mother, this is really a rather sharp rebuke from her. I'll read it again. Shantananda says, Mother, the stone image does not satisfy us any longer. Mother, why do you say so, my child? How many hopeless sinners come to Varanasi and attain liberation by touching the image of Lord Shiva? Why do they attain liberation? Because they've come to Varanasi and have the faith that if they do that, they will attain liberation. It's their faith that is their attainment. And then she says, all of their iniquities that they brought with them. And he, the great God, carries on his shoulder the iniquities of all without any murmur. Anyone who has anything to say at any time, please do say it, because otherwise we'll just keep moving along. Shantananda. Mother, so many days have passed away, but I have realized nothing. Mother, God has been gracious in withdrawing your mind from the noise and turmoil of the world and keeping it steady at his feet. Is this a trifle? Jogin, Swami Yogananda, she always referred to these monks by their pre-monastic names. Jogin, Swami Yogananda, used to say, we may not be able to practice meditation and prayer to our heart's content, but we are free from the anxieties of the world. Look at me, I am suffering a great deal on account of Radu. This is Mother talking now. God has been gracious in withdrawing your mind from the noise and turmoil of the world and keeping it steady at his feet. Is this a trifle? Jogin used to say, we may not be able to practice meditation and prayer to our heart's content, but we are free from the anxieties of the world. Look at me, Mother says. I am suffering a great deal on account of Radha. Holy Mother could see the sincerity in the hearts of devotees, so she taught each one differently. One day, finding the mother alone, somebody say that word.
Sarajibala.
Sarijibala. One day, finding the mother alone, Sarijibala asked her, is it permissible to perform worship to the master during a woman's monthly cycle? During a woman's monthly cycle. Holy Mother told her what the master suggested. If your mind is distraught, if you do not perform the worship, then do it. There will be no transgression in it. But if you have any compunction, then don't do it. If you are at all hesitant, don't perform worship. Notice the practicality here. What is it that is directed toward? So the woman asks, is it okay to perform the worship during her monthly cycle? The mother told her what the master had suggested, and it's all about your mind. If your mind is distraught, if you do not perform the worship, then do it. There will be no transgression in it. But if you have any compunction, then don't do it. In other words, if it would upset the mind to do it. If you would be upset if you don't do it, then do it. If you would be upset if you do it, then don't do it. If you are at all hesitant, don't perform worship. However, some days later, she answered the same question differently from another woman. How is it possible to serve the deities under such a condition? Don't perform any ritual at that time. She could see, as the Swami pointed out, she could see into the hearts of each of these people and so instructed them differently.
Shankara,
Yes, dear.
Mother is giving such a wonderful latitude for practicing the spiritual practices with so many things, but at the same time, she is reassuring all of us, like when they touch the Lord Shiva, he carries you on his shoulders.
Yes.
That's a wonderful, so we don't we don't feel like we're this one. We just have to try put full effort on it and perform the spiritual practices.
There's a wonderful little story that is related to the worship of Christ. And this man is addressing Christ, and he said, you said you would always be with me, and yet I look and I see there are times when our footprints in the sand, there's only one set of footprints. Are you not with me then? and Christ says, "Oh yes, I am with you," that's when I am carrying you. That's why there's only one set of footprints. I am carrying. And so it's exactly that same message from a different incarnation, that when we offer ourselves with sincerity and faith to the divine being, however we do it, then we are liberated. Now, you might not be liberated in that moment. It might happen at the time of transition when you're leaving the body. But nevertheless, the promise is there. So thank you for pointing that out, Paul. That's absolutely right. Anything else before we go on?
I don't remember where I read. I think in one of the occasions, Mother says, to somebody who is initiated, and he says, I may not be able to practice. So she reassures him and says, because you are initiated, I will come at the time of your death.
Yes. And furthermore, she reassures more than one person that when you can't do or don't do your japam, your practices, I'll do them for you, which is carrying you. It has to do with the attitude of our heart toward the divine presence and toward the world. If we're divided, if we have, as Krishna says, reservations, then the teachings don't work at all as well as they would. If we're trying to keep a foot in both camps, as it's said in the Christian tradition, you cannot serve both God and Mammon. Mammon is the uh, spirit of this worldly time, space, and causation entangled life. You cannot serve both God and Mammon. So we may have many duties in the world. We may have many trials and tribulations in the world. But if our heart and our intention remains realization that we are constantly working and changing our behavior as best we can toward avoiding those things, minimizing them, limiting them, praying that they be reduced, then we can count on a great deal, both now in this life and at the time of transition.
I still like one more thing, what Mother said about, Swami Yogananda says, even if we are not able to perform the meditation and the prayers, but still we are free from the anxieties of the world. So
Yes.
almost like if we surrender ourselves, we will be free from almost all the anxieties of the world. We get the idea, okay, that will come and it will pass.
Thank you for saying it so well. Yes, exactly. We get a whole different attitude toward it because we recognize who we truly are which gives us a much, much clearer perspective as to what the world really is. As Ebenezer Scrooge says on the morning after his awakening to his clerk, "Oh, Bob, I have not taken leave of my senses. I have come to them. I have come to my senses. I see clearly." And that's what happens to us. We see more and more clearly as we move this direction. Thank you, Bala. Anyone else? Anything? All right, the next subhead, and remember that the chapter title is Holy Mother as Guru. This subhead is Come Unto Me. Language was not a barrier in Holy Mother's spiritual ministry. When she went to South India, she understood two of their words, whatever those words are, meaning mantra and advice. Knowing only these words, she could understand the intention of people and initiate them. Although the initiates did not know Bengali, they understood the mother's words through her divine expressions and gestures. Once Holy Mother returned to Calcutta from Jairambati after suffering from malaria for a long time. She was very weak, and the devotees were not allowed to see her. At that time, a young Parsi man named Surabmoti came from Bombay. He had read a book by Vivekananda and felt drawn to Vedanta. Impressed by his sincerity, Sarada gave him permission to bow down to Holy Mother. Arupananda escorted him to her. After bowing down, Sorab prayed in Hindi, "Mother, please give me a mantra so I can realize God." After bowing down, Sorab prayed in Hindi, "Mother, please give me a mantra so that I can realize God." Holy Mother asked Arupananda, "Shall I initiate him? Let me do so." Arupananda replied, "How is it possible? You just recovered from a fever. Moreover, no one is ever allowed to see you now. What will Sharat Maharaj think? You had better initiate him later." Holy Mother said, You go and ask Sharat." Arupananda rushed to Saradananda and informed him of the matter. Saradananda replied, "What can I say? If the mother wants to initiate the young Parsi man, then let her do it. What can I say? If the mother wants to initiate that young Parsi man, let her do it." When Arupananda returned to Holy Mother, he found she had already spread 2 asanas and was ready with the Ganges water. After initiation, she said to Arupananda, "This boy is good. He understood whatever I said." Amazed, Arupananda realized that this was the mother's play. Later, Sorab Modi related his reminiscences to Swami Nirmayananda. Thank you. It was 1918. I was then a young man. My elder brother was a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, and from him I first heard about Sri Sarada Devi. My brother sent me from Bombay to Calcutta to meet Holy Mother. After arriving in Calcutta, I went to Bug Bazar to see the mother, who was then very ill. I had heard that no devotees were allowed to see her. I bowed down to Swami Saradananda and said, I have come from Bombay to see the mother, and I want initiation from her. Observing my passionate appeal, his mind softened. He asked a monk to escort me to the mother and asked me to seek blessings from her. After bowing down to the mother, I expressed my desire for initiation. Out of compassion, she immediately initiated me. Although she did not understand my language, and I also did not know Bengali, we communicated well without any difficulty. The mother spoke in Bengali, and I answered in Hindi. While taking leave from her, I said, Mother, I am going. The mother said, My son, don't say I am going. Rather say, I am coming. When the mother's attendant translated her words to me into English, I was amazed. I was unaware of the Bengali custom that one should speak that way while leaving. However, I returned to Bombay with a sweet memory of the mother. She was wonderful and beautiful. Thus many years have passed, and now I am an old man. I almost forgot the mother all these years as I was busy with the movie industry. Now I am waiting for the call from above, and that call can come at any time. I have no attraction for this world anymore. Now the forgotten mother is coming to my mind again and again. Now those words of hers, my son, don't say I am going, rather say I am coming, are ringing in my ears. Now I realize what was Now I realize what was then inscrutable to me. I wanted to go away from the mother, but could not succeed. No one can go away from the mother. Everyone will have to return to the mother. This is the last realization of my life. I am coming to my mother. Now, if you recall, in earlier chapters, Mother said unequivocally that she is mother of us all, without exception. She is our true mother, the mother of us all. So we have just a few minutes left. Is there anything else that wants to be discussed? Anything else? Any questions or comments from anyone?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, Swayam.
Yeah. So I've been in and out of the meeting again, as I think some of you know, my mother-in-law is having some dementia issues, and that makes it very hard to maintain any sort of routine. But what I was going to say was, it's been helpful for me to, and I listened to the taped lecture again. As I said, I've not been able to concentrate, but I'm still doing my japa as best as I can. And I was reading this book, Spiritual Quest by Swami Tapasyananda. And I liked something here where it says, he says that the Holy Mother compares the progress of a spiritual aspirant to a man asleep who is being carried on a stretcher.
On a cot, yes.
Oh, okay. He is not aware of the progress he is making, but only finds himself at the destination when he wakes up. Though unaware of it, he was all the while progressing, provided he had really been taken on the stretcher. So, my question was, the being taken on the stretcher is the spiritual practice?
Well,
Provided.
have you not offered yourself at the feet of Takurma? Have you not given yourself to them in asking for initiation and so on?
Okay. Okay. Now I get it. I just wasn't sure what the carried on the
So
stretcher.
you were, as soon as that desire arose in you, as soon as that intention was a reality for you, you were on the stretcher. And as far as this business of your disturbance at home, dear, I'm aware of what's going on, yes. Not in any intimate detail, but certainly in its outwardness. Just as best you can, when you wake up in the morning, if you can just remember, O Takurma, I offer this day to thee. Thy sweet will be done. And then just go ahead with your day as best you can. If you just do that with sincerity, just offer the day to them. This day and all it contains is offered to thee. Thy sweet will be done. And then go ahead. And when you have time, make some japa. If you have time, as you've been doing, do some reading. But you are emphatically on that stretcher, dear, yes.
Thank you so much, Brother Shankara. That means a lot. Thank you.
Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Anyone else? Anything? All right. I'm going to repeat something I said at the beginning. You'll find in the chat window, you'll find a link. That link is to a hymn written by Eric Clapton. The title is Holy Mother, and the performance that is in through that link is a performance by Eric Clapton, Luciano Pavarotti, and the London Gospel Choir. It was done fairly recently. It is unclear from anything I've ever seen who the personality is that Eric Clapton wrote this Holy Mother song to. Whether it was Mother Mary or whether it was to Sri Sarada Devi. But it doesn't matter. Just as all incarnations of Vishnu are Vishnu, all incarnations of Mother are the Divine Mother. The Chandi makes this very explicit indeed. So I recommend listening to that song. It's beautiful, and it certainly does offer the writer of the song, Eric Clapton, is offering himself and asking for the mother's refuge. It's a beautiful, beautiful rendition of a song to Holy Mother. So it's there for you in the chat. The link is there. Any last thoughts from anyone? Okay.
Somebody tell me, how do I save that link? I'm not able to do it.
Just copy it. Copy it.
Yeah, I did.
And then open a word processing window, and then just and then paste it into that, or
Okay.
paste it into an email to yourself.
Okay.
And then when you're ready to listen to it, just click on it.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Mhm. Anything else from anyone? All right.
Wonderful class, Brother Shankar.
Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Om Hari Om. Om Sato Ma Satkamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved Lord, lead us from this place of endless change and relentless noise to thine abode of silence, serenity, and peace. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So we'll start next week with Once Holy Mother was waiting at the Vishnupur railway station to catch a train to Calcutta. That's where we'll start next week. Any last thoughts from anyone? All right, dears. Until next time, of course,
Thank you,
tomorrow
Brother
night.
Thank you.
Yes, tomorrow night, of course, we're studying chapter 10 of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. It's he's rolling right along, I can tell you that. So until next time, talk with you again soon.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank
Hari Om.
you, Hari Om.